Jeopardy! Contestants have dished what happens when the show's host, Ken Jennings, flubs a line. On Thursday, former players and audience members provided insight into what happens behind the scenes on Jeopardy! On an online forum dedicated to the long-running game show, a fan asked what happens when Ken Jennings, 50, flubs his words. The writer explained, of course they have him re-record and edit it in for the TV broadcast. I'm more curious about how if it affects live play. I'm sure a tiny glitch or stutter is not a big deal and they just continue, they reason before adding, but I'm sure on occasion words come out wrong enough to disrupt flow. Clue isn't quite read in the right flow/tone, and even though he reads and rehearses beforehand, the human brain still glitches. I'm sure it happened to Alex sometimes too, they continued. The Redditor question, do they just pause tape for a minute or two and then pick up where they left off? Is it better or worse as a contestant to have a small breather, or does it disrupt your brain flow and/or buzzer timing? In the post's comment thread, a former Jeopardy! Audience member replied, the host re-records pickups during the commercial breaks. They just keep going, no pause, keeping the game going in real time. Same as during the Alex era, which I saw live and in person, they bragged. A second fan asked, do the contestants actually get a break during the commercial breaks? Former contestant Nam Nguyen answered, yes. First break is Ken taking audience questions, second break is the two new contestants' photos with Ken, then of course third is wagering for final. You stand in place at the podium and are brought water while production staff do all the things they need to do, chimed another past player. They revealed, this includes clue pickups, contestant photos, Ken taking questions from the audience, or other things. Typically they can last anywhere from about 2 to 5 minutes before the next segment starts. What's a clue pickup? Asked the fan. Re-recording the audio of clue reads that were not read perfectly the first time, the contestant replied. Later, the same player explained, contestants are explicitly told not to go by what is said, but by what is written, because our response will be judged against the written clue only. In my experience, any flub Ken or mayim ever made in clue reading basically amounted to a momentary pause and then repeat of the flubbed word, which was then re-recorded during breaks. I can't speak for everyone, but I rarely if ever actually listen to the host's clue reading for help parsing clues, so I don't think a reading error would basically ever be so egregious as to cause a stop-down. I can also say that stop-downs are not something I ever wanted as a player. They are far more disruptive than a mispronounced or stut. Ken was not initially chosen to replace Alex Trebek on Jeopardy! Because he lacked the ease of a natural-born TV presenter, a studio insider has claimed to the U.S. Sun. The former champion was named sole host in December 2023 after actress Bialik, 48, was let go from the series. Before that, Ken was one of several guest hosts who tried out when Alex died of pancreatic cancer in November 2020. Ken's trivia prowess was never in question, as he boasts the record longest winning streak in Jeopardy! History with 74 wins in 2004. But there have been questions about his on-screen charisma as he transitions from famed champ to the face of the franchise. Ken never had another major TV role to his name. But he's not letting that stop him as he grows into his role for the long haul. The long-term goal with his hosting has been for him to bring more of the easygoing, likable side of him to his on-air interactions with contestants, the insider said. That's far easier said than done because the episode tapings are highly technical and there isn't a lot of wiggle room in that format. To his credit, Ken is self-aware and knows his issues are always going to be how his personality reads on camera, and not his proven expertise with trivia or with the Jeopardy! Game itself. Ken knows this, Sony knows this, and everybody knows this is the reason he was never the first choice to replace Alex Trebek, they claimed. He got this job because the other candidates didn't work out, and Ken is at peace with that. Balancing act. Ken's hosting role now demands much more than just holding court with 3 contestants and an audience of millions every weeknight. While he only tapes twice a week, 5 games per tape day, the TV personality's job is expanding along with the ever-modernizing show. Being the face of Jeopardy! Sounds like an easy job with only a handful of taping dates a month, but there's a bit more to it than that, the insider added. Ken also shows up to give pep talks at audience recruiting events around the country, and as the franchise has transitioned away from the Alex era, Ken's had to set aside time. He's now embarking on various merchandising and spin-offs of the show, which are very important to keeping the whole enterprise profitable. Ken made a surprise guest appearance at an Inside Jeopardy! Live on tour in NYC in April, where he spoke at length and hosted a pseudo-game for 150 people. It's a high-stakes balancing act Ken has had to grow into, and his Emmy nomination last year was a big vote of confidence that the TV industry, or at least a healthy portion of it, is rooting for Ken to make this work and to have a long run as Alex has. The Insider added that sticking with Ken instead of Mayim, a sitcom actress for decades, may have seemed like a gamble, but it's paying off. Even the transition from Mayim Bialik and Ken sharing hosting duties to just Ken having the job made Sony nervous. But Ken has shown that he can handle the job alone, and the ratings have backed that up. As long as the ratings hold and he doesn't make any major public gaffes, Sony will stick with him, haters be damned.